Welcome to the March 2021 Star Wars Canon Update. This month we got a new novel, a new short story, and 6 new comics, so let's dive in. The novel that was released was the final installment of the Alphabet Squadron trilogy, Victory's Price by Alexander Freed, and it was awesome. I love pilot stories, I loved the first 2 Alphabet books, and Victory's Price was a fantastic conclusion. It might be the Star Wars story that has really made me think the most in recent memory. Almost every Star Wars story has something to say, some lesson to take away, but Victory's Price asks some very difficult questions while still offering up some satisfying answers without telling you what to think. And that's all wrapped up in some excellent starfighter action fleshed out by phenomenal characters. I've done a spoiler-free and a spoiler review of the book if you want to hear more about what I have to say. You can also pick up the audiobook for free by visiting www.audibletrial.com/Star Wars Explained or by clicking on the link in the description. But moving on, let's get into the new High Republic stories with issue number 3 of the Marvel comic. This was probably my least favorite of the released issues so far, but it still had some very interesting, exciting, and scary ideas. The Dringir have been revealed, and that doesn't really come as a surprise to anyone who read Into the Dark, but anyone who didn't needs some time to get to know them. I understand that, but it felt a little like I was waiting around for people to catch up to what was revealed in the book. That said, I think it's messed up that both Sarek and Tarek fall under the Dringir's mind control thanks to their linked brains, and of course having Skier controlled by them as well is a terrifying threat for our heroes. The High Republic Adventures issue 2 was an impressive follow-up to the first. I'm very relieved to see that wasn't a fluke. This style of adventures comic feels more like a Marvel series than what I'm used to with IDW. Not only was the storytelling good, but it's hinting at some of the mysteries the High Republic era has already established in Light of the Jedi. We're getting to see that, yes, the stories aimed at a younger audience are still going to have their own revelations and connections, and I'm just as excited for this series to continue as I am for the Marvel comic. It's clipping along at a steady pace, and I'm excited to see what the future holds for these characters as their galaxy continues to open up. Star Wars Insider released a new short story by Cavan Scott called First Duty. It shows some of the interesting political fallout for the Great Disaster, and this idea that the Outer Rim is kind of being pushed into a quick unification thanks to what the Nile did. And the transition is not going smoothly, with some warring factions in close proximity to each other on Starlight Beacon. It was a good story. I don't think anyone will be missing out on anything without a subscription to Star Wars Insider, and I wouldn't recommend signing up just for these short stories, but check out the Libby app, because my local library actually has issues of Star Wars Insider available digitally, so if you want to read these, that could be your best option. Moving out of the High Republic, Star Wars issue 12 was, according to writer Charles Soule's words, a transition issue. It showed Leia and Kaz Dameron bonding by sharing stories about the people they love, who they are currently separated from. I really do like seeing some of these new canon characters from non-film stories getting to interact with the big characters who've been around since the start. What's more, the stories were good and emotional, especially Leia's tale about Han. There's not a whole lot to talk about canon-wise, but it was still a good issue. Dr. Aphra issue 8 continued a High Republic tie-in story as Aphra and Sana search for a Nile path engine, but the two characters also relate or argue with each other about how they are seemingly wayward at this point. Aphra is without her friends from the first run of the series, and Sana is no longer with the Rebellion, at least as far as we know. But their begrudging bonding is interrupted by the Unbroken Clan, a criminal syndicate also after the Nile tech. This was a fine issue, not as weird and crazy as I prefer Aphra to be, but it's good to take some time to slow down here and there for character development. And we know the weirdness is coming, thanks to the announcement that Dirge will be joining the cast in a few months. Bounty Hunters issue 10 was probably my favorite of the series so far. Valance is really growing on me as a character, but I think it was Paolo Villanelli's artwork that really took this story to the next level. Valance basically storms through a ship taking out pirates like the Terminator because he basically is the Terminator. While he's fighting pirates to save rebels, he thinks back to the time Han Solo saved his life and learns from Dengar that Solo has been captured. So we're getting some setup for the coming War of the Bounty Hunters comic crossover event that'll be happening, and seeing Valance's motivations for joining the fight. And finally, Star Wars Adventures Issue 4 had 2 new short stories. The first completed a little arc with Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. It reminded me a lot of a Clone Wars episode, which makes sense. It was written by Michael Morisi, who did the great run of Adventures Clone Wars Battletale comics. The second was about Val and Beckett. It was nice to see them actually working together a bit, get more of the relationship than we got in Solo. But it's also kind of hard for me to buy Beckett being all that sympathetic after the movie. But that's it for March. For Story of the Month this time around, I'm giving it to Victory's Price. Like I said, I loved it, and I still find myself thinking about it more days than not, over a month after finishing it. In April, we're getting 6 new comic issues and a new Thrawn book, Greater Good. That'll be the second installment of the Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy. I liked the first of the series quite a bit, so here's hoping it keeps up that momentum. But that's it for today. The Canon Update will return on May 1st to cover all those new stories. Until then, please like this video, subscribe to the channel to keep up with all our Star Wars coverage, follow us on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and consider checking out our Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.